Welcome to This Week in High School Sports. I'm Teresa Whipple here with Steve Willits, and the most important thing about this week is the fact that there's going to be turkey on Thursday.
That's always important, isn't it? And for us to give thanks and enjoy a nice meal.
That's right. And we also want to make sure we recognize the wonderful event that Sean Richards at Red Onion Burgers, our sponsor, put on Friday. It was the Tip a Cop event, and raising money for their Shop with a Cop fundraiser for kids in need in the area. But Steve, I understood you learned how to make milkshakes.
I did. I was the volunteer milkshake maker for the fundraiser, and what a delicious place to have to be at, right? The milkshake machine for a couple hours, but for a great cause. I enjoyed it. Hopefully, by the time it was all said and done, I became a pro after being very much a novice to begin with, and had a wonderful time. And again, everything was for a great cause, and it was just an exciting night to be at Red Onion.
Very good. Okay, well, let's talk winter sports. That's really why we're here.
It is, because the fall sports for us have all wrapped up. Our teams have completed their seasons. We have nothing to report on this week in terms of sports that have just completed. So we're starting to look ahead to the winter sports season. And I think what the sport we'll start off with is wrestling. And when you talk wrestling in the Edmonds School District, you talk the Edmonds-Woodway Warriors. Brian Alfi, the head coach there, has put together an elite program, a team that year in and year out puts Edmonds-Woodway wrestlers at the Tacoma Dome for the state championships, the Mat Classic as they call it. He's had state champions. He's had other members of the team finish on the podiums. And he's got another strong group this year. So we thought we'd bring Coach Alfi in to talk about the Warriors program, not only in terms of some of their successes that they've had, but also what the team looks like going into this season. Here's the interview we did with Coach Brian Alfi. It's time for winter sports seasons, and one of which is wrestling. Teams just finishing up their first week of practice, and joining us right now, the head coach for the Edmonds-Woodway Warriors wrestling program, Brian Alfi. Brian, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
First week of practice is in the books. I know we still have a little ways to go before your first invitational coming up on December 1st, but how is the team looking right now?
Pretty good. So great numbers. We're really excited about the group we have back. We have over 90 athletes with paperwork in. I think we have 70 on the boys' side and 25 on the girls' side. Some great returners coming back. We had 3 guys that were at the state tournament last year with Baylor Deckinger, who won a match there. We have Howie Hare that took 8th in state. We have Grayson Lecompte that took 3rd in state. All those guys are back, and then we have a handful of athletes that were a match away from going.
It's funny, we talk in terms of sports these days, and some teams that have trouble fielding enough athletes. You don't seem to have that problem. If anything, it might almost be on the other end of that. Is there such a thing as having too many wrestlers in the program, and how do you control finding enough mat time for everybody?
So we do a really good job of making sure that every kid gets enough outings. So we have 4 full schedules. We have a first varsity schedule where we make sure to travel quite a bit. Our 2s are almost the unofficial team in Metro. So we have a full Metro schedule where they get 10 duels and tournaments every weekend. And we have a JV schedule, and we have a girls schedule. So we do a good job of making sure all those athletes get competitions, and then practice space is a little tricky, but we kind of coordinate. We'll be in multiple spaces during the day. So sometimes we'll be in the weight room, or we'll be in an upstairs flex area rolling out an extra mat, because we only have, in our wrestling room, we only have 1 mat and a panel. So. Oh, wow, okay. Now, you've become one of the premier coaches in the area, certainly a name that everybody talks about and affiliates with wrestling in Snohomish County. What is your wrestling background? You're an Edmonds-Woodway alum, right? So this is a kind of a labor of love, I've got to think, to a certain extent. I started wrestling as a freshman. I was small. I liked basketball until that time, but I was 5'3", 100 pounds, so decided to turn out for wrestling. I had a great coach in high school. I had Mike Hanchett. Went to go wrestle at Central Washington, but they cut the program. So at that point, I really liked my friends. I didn't want to transfer anywhere, so I started coaching at Ellensburg High School. They had a great situation there, and just kind of took off from there. Came back and started coaching my brothers when they were in high school, and just really enjoyed it.
We did miss one story in there that you mentioned to me off camera, which I think is great, especially with the tie into the area here. You had a coach at an early age. You wanted to quit initially, right? Your freshman year.
I wanted to quit the first week, and
who was the coach that told you if you quit, you weren't going to play baseball?
The Meadowdale middle principal, Joe Webster, told me the first week, if you quit wrestling, don't even try out for baseball. So
and you were a baseball guy, so you didn't want that.
I was a baseball guy, so I stuck out the wrestling season, and I tried out for baseball at 5'3", 100 pounds, and he cut me anyways. So,
so he cut you anyways, but your wrestling career blossomed, and that was Edmonds-Woodway's gain, because you certainly have done a great job building up a program like this. Edmonds-Woodway throughout the years has always been a strong wrestling program, but it feels as though you have taken it to another level in terms of success on the mats, in terms of the numbers. I know a lot of that has to do with some of the youth wrestling. Talk a little bit about what that means and how vital that is to building up a high school program.
I'm very fortunate. I mean, we have a lot of coaches that help with program retention, so every kid gets a lot more attention. And our youth program has been great. It's been one of the biggest clubs in the country, being top 50, top 25 nationally in numbers, and I think that's really starting to help build a wrestling culture in Edmonds. And we're getting some of those kids that are really starting to trickle in now, and it's been a positive place for kids to be. We don't have any egos or alphas in that type of unconventional way where they're a little bit meaner. So I mean, it's just it's a warm place for everybody to come in and feel like they get better. And
you've made it accessible to the kids too, right? I mean, it's not as though it's reach deep into your pockets and come on out here and wrestle type of thing.
Yeah, just bring your shoes and shorts. We have 4 schedules. Every event's paid for. All the transportation's paid for. These kids that travel to California, planes paid for, hotels, everything. So camps, we have multiple camps that are free, and then beyond that, we even have scholarships. So the Hess family has a scholarship, and we have multiple scholarships every year for graduating seniors.
And the thing that I think has become so great about wrestling, not nationally really, but the way you guys have done it at Edmonds-Woodway, the girls program has really taken off. This is no longer just a boys' sport, is it?
No, girls wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the country. There's multiple college programs with it now. And we have Terry Ray. Terry Ray actually coached me, and he's done a great job, getting that program off the ground. We're up to 25 girls now. So 8's an official WIA program, and we're at 25. So this number has really exploded. We have one senior girl that, as a freshman, she was the only girl on the team, and now she's looking around, and there's 24 other girls. So it's been really fun to see that progress. And they have a full schedule. They're up to 14 outings. I think they'll have their first official duel this year. They'll have another overnight trip and full tournament schedule.
And Victoria Keys. Key to that program, right? And
yeah, she'll be back. She's 2-time state participant for us, and she's junior this year, works really hard. She had a great off season, going to a lot of camps in wrestling freestyle, and it's really neat to see these girls kind of put in a culture for that girls wrestling program to give on to the next group.
And before I ask about some of the wrestlers individually, I do want to have you maybe address assistant coaches as well. How important are they to you? I mean, obviously with 90 wrestlers starting out, this isn't a one-person operation, is it?
I'm just a paper pusher at this point. So we have, every day we kind of sit and we make our practice plan just because we have huge numbers and it just depends on the day and who can get there. It's really tough to make that commitment to get there at 3 p.m. every day to coach high school wrestling. And we have a huge staff. We have over 10 coaches, and we all really know our roles. We've had great retention with our coaches, and I think that's the reason our numbers are so big. These athletes make great connections with these coaches, and they come back and with each other. We have four teams, so if you're sending 2 or 3 coaches out every weekend, you got to have good guys in every spot. You have multiple head coaches on a Saturday.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot and have you try to get all those coaches' names off the top of your head, but any in particular, maybe 2 or 3 that are kind of really vital to what you've been doing over the last decade?
We have a lot that have been great. Since day one, Riley Standard and Rich Villiers have been there, and Riley's been kind of our glue with a lot of stuff he does. He runs our 2s, or he'll pick up anything that happens along the way. Rich Villiers, I don't think I've ever had to touch a piece of gear with Rich. So, and we have a lot of great coaches. So I don't want to name them all because I'll forget someone. But we have a great coaching staff. We all have different roles. Some guys are really great at showing technique in front of the group. Some guys really make sure that everything else stays organized, and all of them are really good at making connections with the kids and creating a positive environment for all of them.
And as far as some of the individuals, I know you rattled off 3 names at the very beginning of the interview, but talk to me a little bit more in detail about them and what they're capable of doing this year. Grayson Lecompte might be a great place to start. I know he took 3rd at state last year, I believe. Yeah. Is sky's the limit for this kid, or what?
You kind of looked at what they did in the offseason, and he put in all the time. So Grayson had a great offseason, did more than we asked him. Went and searched out the best practice partners in the area. Really excited about Grayson and what he can do, and he's still growing. He only started wrestling as a 7th grader, so he still has a pretty high ceiling. Howie coming back, went to the state as a freshman, placed as a sophomore. He wrestled a lot this offseason. He actually went to...
And that's Howie Hare.
Yeah. And he went to Japan on a cultural exchange trip, and he had a great offseason, and same with Baylor. So Baylor was in the car. All these guys were just driving around to different clubs and making sure to find the best partners. And we have Uzman, that was a match away from state, and Josh Brown, a match away from state, and Kemper, a match away from state, and E-Man, same thing in that conversation, that all those guys were really close. And we have a couple other district finalists back, like Grayson Lecompte and Christian Simpson. So we feel like we have a really deep group.
When you were talking to me off camera earlier, you drew a baseball analogy, which I thought was really interesting in terms of how this team looks from a team standpoint, because obviously these individuals are trying to place at a state level for themselves individually and trying to win a state championship. But you guys also accumulate team points as the season progresses, not only in head-to-head matchups, but also at a higher level at state. Talk a little bit about that baseball analogy you gave me earlier and what this team looks like this year.
Last year we had a 12-0 dual team, and we had a fantastic senior class. We had 15 seniors, and they were really deep. It was tough to find a weight class where you were going to beat us, and if you did, it was going to be by a small decision. And they were able to go 12-0 in duels, but we only took 14th in the state tournament. So if you have a kid that takes 8th place at state, he might only score 3 or 4 points. If you have a kid that makes the finals, he's going to score 23. So
it's almost better to have a higher ratio of and smaller number of guys that are, yeah.
And we have some of those guys that are fully capable of making the state finals. I think we have multiple guys that are going to be in that conversation this year and have big seasons. So from a state tournament standpoint, we might have some more higher end placers that can score more points and kind of make a run, a little higher than we did last year. But it'll be a little different because we're so young. We graduated 15 seniors, and I think 10 were in the lineup. So we're going to have a lot of new guys that get an opportunity to step in.
So the baseball analogy you gave to me was what, though?
Oh, last year we had 5 great starters, and we were built for the regular season. And this year I think we have some aces.
So I think the term you used to me was that it was like the 2001 Seattle Mariners. You put together 116 wins, but weren't quite built for the postseason.
We weren't quite built for the postseason.
And now you said you got double. What'd you say earlier? Double Kershaws.
Yeah, now we got a few Kershaws.
So you got a couple aces in the hole. So it'll be interesting to see. And also we should point out 29 freshmen coming out this year. That's the biggest number ever?
This is definitely the biggest number. I mean, a lot of programs are 30 to 40 wrestlers, and we have 29 freshman boys alone, and a lot of those guys wrestled in our youth program. So, and that college place team, they won districts on top of that, and that's great power in numbers. So making sure those guys get a lot of opportunities and kind of grow together as a group and see how high they can go. I think the senior group that graduated, there were something like 53-4, so they have some big shoes to fill. But stepping in, I think that this is a pretty good group to help kind of replace that void that these seniors left us.
Yeah, keeping the program running strong. How does the wrestling scene look in this area right now, both in terms of maybe from an Edmonds School District standpoint, but also just from Snohomish County and Wesco in general? Is it a strong year? Is it down? Do we not know yet?
I'm not sure if we know yet. I mean, we have a lot of strong programs. We have a lot of good coaches. I think we'll just kind of figure out where. I'm kind of excited to see how the cards fall with Edmonds Invite, because we'll get a pretty good idea with a lot of the local teams, and we'll see how some of these kids are going to do this year in high school and get kind of that first insight on where everybody's going to be. We have no idea where anybody is weight-wise or anything like that right now.
So stay tuned for that. And you just touched upon the Edmonds Invite. That's December 1st, really the first chance you guys are going to be in action against other teams, and you just happen to be hosting it. That's an all-day tournament, is that correct?
All-day tournament, yeah. Final start about 5:36.
And this is a big one, and this is one of the bigger ones in the state, right? So talk a little bit in terms of who's coming, how you determine which schools to invite, and are you basically determining that based on some of the individuals at those schools, wanting to get them in there, or do you look for strong teams?
Yeah, we try and get the best programs we can, just so we can get the best competition. I mean, you can't win a league title in December. You can't place at state in December. I mean, all you're trying to do is get the best matches you can for your athletes, and if you can get those people in your gym, then all the better. So you have teams come from Tri-Cities and Spokane in the past. We have a lot of teams coming up from Vancouver, and there's some great weight classes. I think last year one of the weight classes had 14 state participants or placers in it last year. So finding that level of competition is great that first week of the season for these guys.
And that's the other tricky thing with wrestling at times, and I know we've even talked to Lake Stevens about this because they have one of the prominent 4A programs in the state, trying to go out and find ideal matchups to get your guys ultimately ready for the state tournament later on down the road. You have to travel sometimes, and you have to take and hold your own invites and invite these schools to come to you. What are some of the big dates on your schedule that we should be looking at right now?
We're going to go to El Cajon and San Diego, and I think there's a few nationally ranked teams in there that we'll see. It's going to be a tough tournament, 65 teams, and going to find some of the better teams on the West Coast and just really test ourselves and come back and be the most prepared we can by February. And it's kind of a balancing act. You want to make sure you have those really elite, tough events, and you want to have good local tournaments and just kind of have a balance for everybody in your program so they all find that success, but at the same time challenge it. You never want a kid to go through their regular season undefeated. You want to make sure that you had a schedule tough enough to challenge your best athletes.
And El Cajon is the weekend of December 14th, 15th, and 16th. And then you've got a Northwest Duels down in Oregon at the end of December that you're taking the team to.
That'll be great. That's 40 teams. We haven't really done a dual meet format, but we're going to be a little younger this year, so we want to make sure we get all those kids a lot of matches and kind of grow together as a group. We have a lot of new faces in the lineup, so that'll be a fun one to go test ourselves. And you have teams that come from all over. That's down in Albany, Oregon. That'll be a tough event. That'll be great.
Do you schedule differently when you have a younger team than when you have an older team?
I schedule differently every year, so it just kind of depends on the group. But this year we changed everything but Edmonds Invite, just because it was a different group, and in a lot of ways we're better. In some ways we're young, so this kind of changed it to make it so it was better for our entire group. We have so many weights that we're going to be double stacked with 2 good wrestlers in the lightweights. So first weekend Edmonds Invite, we really have control of who we enter, and then we're going to a double entry tournament the second weekend, and El Cajon will let us enter 20, so if we have some of those weights that are doubled up, and then we can really control and rotate down at the duel. So it doesn't really matter so much. We don't want those kids to be competing with each other. So we built our schedule, so I'm not the number 1 106 and the number 2 106. They're not competing with each other. They both are really looking at each other as practice partners and not competitors, because they're going to have the same schedule for the most part.
So the schedule's all set. The wrestlers are in the gym. All the paperwork is turned in. Yep. Now it's just a matter of getting a few more practices in before the Edmonds Invitational on December 1st. Brian Alfi, a fantastic job with the program over the last decade, and best of luck this season.
Thank you.
It's always good to hear how these coaches get their start, and I love the baseball analogy.
Baseball analogy, and also the fact that he got his start at Ellensburg High School.
Yeah, my alma
your alma mater.
So I didn't realize that. I meant to talk with him about that, but yeah, that's crazy.
Always crazy to hear those tie-ins, and yeah, the program he's put together there. And the thing that I like the most is the fact that there are still numbers that are growing. So many sports these days, you see participation numbers decreasing across the board. The fact that Edmonds-Woodway has 90 wrestlers, and not only are they boy wrestlers, girl wrestlers too. He and Coach Ray, also for the girls program, have done an outstanding job over there at Edmonds-Woodway, and I have a feeling they're going to have a lot of success this year.
Yeah, very good. Well, and now we have another sport to talk about that's always my personal favorite for winter sports.
It is basketball time. The season starts next week, and all of the teams across the board for the Edmonds School District just completing their first week of practices / tryouts in some cases. And now this is when they start to really kind of ramp things up and get ready for the season. Mountlake Terrace does it in a pretty big way, and they've been doing so dating back to 1994. They have an event called Jam Session, which kicks everything off. It's always the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and it always brings not only inter-squad games for both the boys and the girls, but also an alumni game, as well as other interactive activities, music playing throughout the time. It's really intended to be an entertainment value for anybody who's in the gym that day or that evening. It starts at 5:30 on Tuesday. So rather than us try to go into depth too much as to what's going on that night or who's going to be there, why not bring the 2 founders of the event into the studio, who also happen to be the 2 that 24 years later are still running everything. Vince DeMiero from the newspaper, the Mountlake Terrace Hawkeye school newspaper, and head coach Nalin Sood to talk about Jam Session as well as Mountlake Terrace basketball. It's that time of year again where we start talking basketball. Practice is just wrapping up. The first week of practice is this week. Season's right around the corner. And joining us right now, 2 members from Mountlake Terrace High School, here to promote a very special event coming up. We have the head basketball coach for the Hawks, Nalin Sood, and Vince DeMiero, faculty advisor for the Hawkeye National Award-winning newspaper at Mountlake Terrace High School, as well as a teacher at Mountlake Terrace, and, oh, by the way, a longtime public address announcer for this very basketball team. Guys, thanks for being here, but we want to talk about Jam Session coming up on Tuesday. This is a big event. Kicks off the basketball season really for the public, an event that started back in 1994, and I guess the easiest way to describe to somebody what Jam Session is, kind of the high school version of Midnight Madness for the college basketball programs. Nalin, or actually Vince, the 2 of you, the founders of the event. How exactly did this event come about?
Well, it was kind of a crazy thing. It all stemmed from a trip that I took a couple of students, Hawkeye students, over to WSU back when I was traveling with the football team. And we went to Midnight Madness after a home Cougar football game. And on the way back, we're driving back, and the kids in the van with me were saying, geez, we should do something like that. And I was like, yeah, we should do something like that. And we got back, and I talked to Nalin, and he's like, yeah, we should do something like that. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I guess we have to do something like that. And at the time, Coach Otmar, and he was very receptive to it and said, "Geez, we've been doing this inter-squad scrimmage and pretty much just the mom and the dad show up. But if we could recreate a kind of a game situation and have some fun and do a little marketing with that, why not?" And I don't know about you, but I sort of thought it was going to be a one-time deal, and then the next year rolls around like everybody was expecting, and here we are 25 years later, we're still doing this thing. So.
Yeah, I think people expect it like they expect homecoming. And I do have to add that same weekend I had gone to the University of Washington's Midnight Madness, but Vince being Vince, he left out anything good the University of Washington Huskies do, so I just had to throw that in.
Husky Cougar here,
yeah, exactly. So, but we did get together and talked, and it was coincidental because I don't think we had talked in advance of going to those things, and here we are 25 years later talking about one of the signature events. Yeah. And the way the Hawkeye is promoted and sponsored. And I also got to share that we have a sports and entertainment marketing class at Mountlake Terrace High School that now they've got something really relevant and that the students in the community can relate to, that they can go out there and assist with. But the Hawkeye's done a fantastic job taking this to every year to a better and better level.
And Nalin did mention that he's the teacher of that sports marketing class.
Oh, okay.
And the theme and the logo and everything for this year came right out of that class, and the enthusiasm that's brought to the event has been just absolutely infectious and positive.
And the theme this year is what? I know you change it every year.
Well, maybe you should explain it because it's related to a kind of a cool move now in basketball.
Exactly, and so the students, they all came up with ideas. They got in groups and they came up with the ideas, and we vetted and discussed them, and then we voted. And this year it's Jelly Jam Session 2018. Well, there's a jelly roll lay-in that the NBA guys and the college guys do, and me being the coach that I am and getting older and older, I had no idea what they were talking about.
Yeah, I had to YouTube it.
So I went on YouTube. There's a jelly roll lay-in that guys do, and so they came up with the logo, and we shared it with Vince, and then Vince passed it on to the students. And if you get a chance, you can go online. Yeah. It's being marketed through social media, but it's the Jelly Jam Session 2018, and it's pretty unique because it's 100% student generated.
Absolutely.
And I must profess to being older too, I guess, because I wasn't exactly sure where that came from until you just described it. So
I was thinking finger roll because of George Gruden in 1982, but that just shows my age.
Right.
He hung those shoes up a while ago.
Yes.
Before we get into the actual events themselves, how much of this, it's a collaborated effort, obviously. How much of it is put on by the Hawkeye? How much of it is by the basketball program itself? And how much of it now is from your sports events program that you're teaching?
This majority of this comes from the Hawkeye. They're the ones that do a lot of the work. They're the rolling up the sleeves, the planning, the organizing, the night of operations. I mean, they've done a lot. They do a lot to make this really happen. And then fortunately we have a girls program, a boys basketball program, and also, with the cheer and some of the individuals we also event there that we can all fill it in. But I got to give credit. The Hawkeye is the one that really is behind the operations and making this the event that it is.
Well, that's nice of you to say that. But Nalin is so well connected in the community that he takes care of all the game related aspects of it, and we have kind of referees sort of fighting over who gets to come ref our event.
And you actually bring in referees that are sanctioned refs that are to referee these inter-squad games, right?
Yeah, they love being there, and we love having them there. And so there's aspects of it that they're actually the game operations aspects that Nalin just does a great job with, and that allows my students and I to kind of take care of more of the event planning and the things that maybe people that come to it more interact with, the contests and prizes and that kind of thing. So.
And I do have to share that officials are required to go out and help out at inter-squad scrimmages. And they go help out, and there's 17 people in the stands watching the inter-squad scrimmage. They come to ours, and it's the same atmosphere as a game.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of the level of enthusiasm, we get several hundred people there. There's music playing, the atmosphere. It's just you can't replicate what goes on with our jam session, and it's one of the most unique things I think for high school basketball in the state. When I get to share that with some of my colleagues, the look on their face is wow.
Yeah. So live DJ playing music, contest going on throughout, slam dunk contests, an alumni game, all of this. But it wasn't always quite this way, was it, Vince? I mean, this thing's evolved over time. Kind of walk us through the evolution of jam session and maybe how it's different in 2018 than maybe it was in 1994.
Well, it hasn't changed too much in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, but when we look back at that first year, it really has evolved quite a bit. It really was just, let's see how many people we can get excited about going to what essentially was an inter-squad scrimmage with our men's team, introduce the women's team, and that was kind of it. We had some contests and prizes that first year. We didn't really know what we were going to do, but we tried, and then things have kind of added over the years, and it's grown, and there's been some crazy things. I don't know if you remember the year where we had a brand new Lexus sitting in the gym.
I do. My number didn't come up for the winning. Yeah, I do remember.
We weren't
that.
giving it away, but there was one year REI had us set up an entire campsite inside there for the event as a promotional thing. We've had laser tag and Dance Dance Revolution. I mean, it just kind of depends on what sort of the hot thing is at the time and where we can get some community support and local business support. And we just, I've learned pretty early on not to say no to some crazy idea, but let's see, what else is. Tell me more about that.
Sure.
If we can work it in, we'll find a crazy way to work it in. So.
And the one thing you guys finally worked in, I want to say it was 3 or 4 seasons ago now, an alumni game. And Nalin, all of you speak to this because you've been either the head basketball coach for varsity or JV. I think it's dating back to 1990 at this point. So you know a few folks in the program, and this is a storied basketball program that's had some of the better players from Snohomish County come through it. When Mountlake Terrace throws together an alumni game, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I'm just not going to have our current team play the alumni. Or even in the past, I would never do that. But, the alumni would ask, when's jam session? We want to come back and watch. And then I would find out there's a lot of them are still playing. And they're still playing at a really high level. And so then Vince and I talked, and, what about getting those guys back for some kind of scrimmage? And, we moved them to the end of the event each night because that fits their schedules a little bit, but that still keeps the draw because people want to see the ghosts of the past. They come play. I know as the head coach of the program, it's great for our current players to see those guys play and see how they play, develop a relationship with them because we're all one big family.
Yeah.
And it started with Coach Blevins, and it continued with Coach Otmar, and it's a tradition, it's a brotherhood, and the young guys are just as happy to see the old guys. The former players, I shouldn't say old guys, because they might like that, not like that. And then for our former players to get to know the young kids also and instill in them the tradition of our basketball program and the success of it, that's been a really important thing. So you get to create that bridge on a night like jam session.
Yeah.
And I know that first year that we did the alumni game, fairly small group. I have a feeling, well, I know for a fact that word of mouth has kind of gotten out. You've got guys coming to you now and approaching you saying, I want to play in this game, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because I can't ever say, well, some of them are saying they don't want to play anymore because they're getting too old. But we still have recent players, and in fact, we have a couple college guys that are actively playing right now that said, Coach, if we don't have a practice or a commitment that night, we'll be there. You better check with your coach first, okay? Because I'm not your coach anymore. So they want to come back, and that just shows how big a deal jam session is, that those guys want to come back and be a part of it. And so it's great seeing those guys. And each time we do this, I get to sort of give a state of the program and where we're at and how things are going. And they're really interested because they're still vested in how the basketball program's doing.
I really think that just speaks volumes about what Nalin and Coach Otmar and Coach Blevins have done as far as this program. First off, I don't know of any. I don't know if you know of any other high school basketball program that's only had 3 head coaches in
close to 60 years. Yeah.
Right. And there is a camaraderie, and there is a sense of like, hey, we did something pretty special so that you can then take it to the next level, kind of thing. And seeing some of these guys that come back. I mean, who was it last year that played? Wasn't he on the '77 championship team?
Yeah, that was Mark Morelli. Mark Morelli from '77.
How cool is that? You
Yeah.
know? And when they don't just come to jam session, I can hear them up there in the stands during regular season games, and I think that just means a whole lot to the program, to the guys that are currently playing too.
Well, that's interesting you say that because last year we had a representative from the 70s,
That's right.
80s, 90s, 2000s, and then 2000, post 2010.
Yeah.
And to have that many generations or that many decades
Yep.
covered, but that's what games are like. I remember sitting up there, turning around, looking in the stands, and there was Coach Otmar, and he had people from 4 or 5 different decades
Yeah.
sitting with him watching basketball games, and That's pretty unique, and I got to give credit to Coach Hotmar that he's kept the relationships up and the communication, and then some of Coach Blevin's former players that still come back to support the basketball team. It's awesome. It's motivates you to do what you do.
It has been indeed. And so again, the event is Tuesday nights. Vince, is there a cost to this event? I know there's a fundraising element to it as well.
There's a fundraising element and as well as a community service element to it as well. So the general admission is $5, but very few people pay $5 because for $3, all you got to do is bring any kind of canned food donation item, any non-perishable food, and all that goes right to the Mountlake Terrace Food Bank. And then we have a special deal for current freshmen at Terrace that they would just need to talk to their Connect leaders. It's kind of like our Link program there. But for the general public, it's $5 general admission, $3 just bring any kind of canned food item and get in, and we just have a great time.
And your $5, even if you're paying full price, is all going towards.
Oh, it's all going towards the journalism program.
Yeah. So I mean, you're helping students out in the process, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
And the schedule of events this year is what?
Well, we usually start off with the women's inter-squad scrimmage. That'll be the first thing. That'll start around 5:30, 5:35, something like that. And there's every time there's a timeout or halftime or whatever, that there's contests and people being pulled out of the audience to participate. And we've got some really good prizes again this year. Lots of great gift certificates and other fun things to give away. And then there's the men's basketball game, inter-squad scrimmage. When those two games are done, then we have the three-point shootout where first off, the top women shooters will shoot and the men will shoot, but they're not competing against each other, but they're picking the best one from both, and then those two go head-to-head. And it's been about 50-50 split in the last couple of years. I
think the girls have won the last couple of years, yeah.
And then we usually have a dunk competition, and then we get cranked up for that alumni game, and it's just a blast.
Yeah, and again, live music being played by you bring your own DJ in too, which is also a Terrace alum.
A Terrace alum, yeah. DJ Tilt, man, he spins the discs and it keeps it going. The digital discs.
And one thing I'll throw in also, because I've been able to take the past couple of years, my wife's brought our kids while they're in elementary or middle school. And it is so entertaining, and they get to be active participants as young people in this. It's just not for the high school kids, but people from all different ages get to feel a part of it and walk out of there feeling like I just wasn't a spectator, I was an active part of it. In fact, we did that freeze frame thing a couple years ago where everybody that was in the gym got to be a part of that thing.
And that's Mannequin Challenge, which is still on YouTube.
That's right. So it's just, for everybody that attends, Tuesday night, if you have nothing going on, even if you do, cancel it because it's a fun event for the community.
Indeed, it is. Let's talk a little bit about your team now. I mean, if we're going to have you in studio, we got to hear who these Mountlake Terrace Hawks are. They've been at the state tournament the last couple of years. I know you lost a couple of core seniors, but who are we expecting to see at the jam session on Tuesday night?
Well, I was just talking to your previous guest, Brian Alfi, and I said, I think a good program is not when you have your best kid here and maybe your least talented kid there. It's sort of when it's like this, and that's where we're a young team, but there's tremendous parity. We're a new team. We lost 6 out of our top 8 players from last year, but the 2 we have back, young men of great character, great work ethic, great leadership. I'd say they'll probably be the cornerstone, but we're a young team. We're an inexperienced team, but they're a team that really likes basketball. They're great young men. I foresee that being the same case in March, and it's going to be a process with this team. It's not going to be probably immediate results or anything like that, but being doing this for so long, I'm really looking forward to coaching this basketball team and seeing the growth. I also have to be patient with them, and I also have to allow some growth, and there's going to be some learning lessons along the way, probably on game nights and everything, but they've done what we've asked in the off season to put themselves in a good position that this could be a really fun and exciting year for this basketball team, and we'll measure this team by this team and this team only, not the ghosts of the past or the previous teams. They'll get to go write their own story. So we had a great first week. There's no nonsense. They worked hard. I even gave them the weekend off. And I've never done that in 32 years. And some people are wondering right now, did he really just say that? But we did. And because this is not a sprint. This is a marathon up until hopefully March 2nd.
Yeah, we should point out Mason Christensen, Mason Peterson, both
Correct.
with a lot of varsity experience last year, starters.
Yes.
So the fact that you've got a couple of those guys, I've got to think helps out, knowing that they have that experience and they can bring that leadership to the table.
Yeah, and they weren't guys that just, we put them in the lineup last year just because we needed to fill spots. They were key players and had very successful seasons for anybody that saw them play. And they've done that in the off season. They play at a high level. And then the other guys, we have 9 guys on varsity right now, a couple of juniors and then some sophomores. The sophomores are going to be pressed into action. And I wouldn't ever put, myself and my co-coaches, we'd never press kids into action unless we believed that they could be successful. So we feel that these young men can go out there and be successful and have a positive experience with this season.
And I've got to ask about one name on here in particular. You're going through a little bit of a new experience for you this year. Who's this Robbie kid? Tell me about him how well you know him.
Yeah, I know him pretty well. He probably knows me better than he wants to, but Robbie Berenger, he's a sophomore. He did not make the varsity team because I'm his stepdad. He made it. He earned it. He shows it every day in practice. I've had a lot of friends that have coached their daughters or their sons, and I've sought advice and thoughts on coaching your son. In fact, one of them just sent me an email the day of practice, just before I was about to go to the gym, and he reminded me about a couple things. And so I can't believe he's already a sophomore, and it's gone by that fast. And that's a reminder that he's going to be a senior and at his last game someday pretty soon to enjoy this. I'm his stepdad. I'm his teacher. I have him in a business law class in high school, and then he has me as his basketball coach. It's really important for me to compartmentalize what's what, because that can be tough for a young man. It can be tough for a coach also, but he's a very mature young man. He understands where he's at on the team, and there's going to be ups and downs, but we'll leave the classroom in the classroom. We'll leave the basketball in the gym, and then we'll come home and make sure that his room's clean and be a dad with that, and make sure that I'm being a good stepdad to him. And so he's a great kid, and I'm very fortunate and going to enjoy these years with him playing varsity basketball.
You always have to worry about parents and how they get on you. I mean, are you worried about mom not being happy with the way you talk to Robbie on the court or anything like that? Or
well,
do you have to deal with that once you get home?
Since she's going to be watching this, I'm not worried about it one bit. Okay? But he's got a very supportive mom that played high school sports, understands sports, and so Robbie's got very good support from myself, his mom, his dad, stepmom. He's got good support on how to deal with the ups and downs, because there are.
Yeah.
And but we want him to experience all facets of high school athletics as a student athlete. And you know about that also, Vince, with your son playing baseball and the success he had in basketball also at Mountlake Terrace High School. So I'm going to try to do this the right way, and if I don't, I'll have to reflect on it and do a better job. It's on me a little bit also.
And I can vouch for it. I've seen Robbie play. He can play ball. Yeah, he's
he
legit.
Can work on a few things. Okay?
Well, yeah, we don't get too big headed yet there. But hey, Vince, you've had a front row seat for this program for what 25 plus years now as the public address announcer. You sit about 8 feet away from this guy when he's coaching his games. Talk a little bit about what Nalin Sood has brought to the table at Mountlake Terrace for the last couple decades.
Wow. How much time do we have? No, it's an absolute pleasure and a joy. There are so many things that I enjoy about having the best seat in the house for Terrace basketball. But a couple things, now that you've asked that question, one of the things that I so admire about you is that pre-game you always are gracious and talk to the opposing team and the opposing coach, and I mean this with all sincerity, there's a type of respect that I see that Nalin has from the officiating crew and from opponents, that I don't know that that's necessarily the norm, but it's definitely the kind of people that I want to be associated with and be around. And then just the consistency over the years. I know this. I love defensive basketball.
I was waiting for this. Here we go.
So, not too many people score too many points against the Hawks in the old Terraceum, and there's something about that intensity that I think it comes right from the top. And I know that's how you played, and I know that's how you were coached, and I think that if there's one thing that's consistent about Terrace basketball since I've been able to watch or be a part of it in any kind of way, it's been that if you're going to come play at Mountlake Terrace High School, you better expect that there's going to be, first off, you're probably going to face man defense, and there's going to be somebody that's going to give you trouble for 32 minutes, and you better bring your game. And the Hawks may not win, but you're going to know you've been in a game with Mountlake Terrace. And I think that all starts with Coach Sood.
Thank you.
Yeah. And as far as the rest of the league now, Wesco 3A, 2A, I guess it's a combined league. You guys keep expanding. Yeah, we're up to 15 teams this year now?
15, correct.
So it's going to be a little tricky for you in terms of you play a 20-team schedule, so 14 of your games have already been pretty much preset for you. You don't have a say in that matter. Talk a little bit about Wesco 3A and how that league has evolved over the last couple of years.
Well, to allude to what you just said, it's great because I know we're going to get 14 good games. It's not like I have to say, well, 6 of the teams aren't very good. I got to go schedule a tougher non-league schedule. Those 14 games will get you, as we've seen the past couple years, our success in the 2A district tournament has been predicated because we've had such a tough league schedule. And it's sort of like I could compare it to the Metro. Those teams do so well, the SEC in football, the ACC in basketball, because their regular season schedule is so tough, they go to the postseason and do well. That's what it's been like for us. So to have 14 tough games again this year, I'm not going to enjoy it as much probably from January through February, but I know that if we can go through that and we can learn to compete, learn to battle, every night you're going to have a good game. That if we down the road through the season we can make the postseason, it'll make us that much better. A lot of respect for the coaches. There's not just good teams out there. There's really good programs, varsity JVC teams, and then there's a host of good players in this league also, and so. People say, well, you say that every year. Well, that's what the Wesco's like, and that's why I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm very proud to coach in the Wesco. There's great coaches for 2A, 3A, 4A, and we just made it that much better with Cedar Crest and Archbishop Murphy. I'll say this about Len Bone. He's as fine a coach and person as there is in the state, so he's going to bring a great program into the Wesco also. So it's definitely going to be a juggernaut for us this year.
It doesn't give you as much to work with in terms of your non-conference.
Yeah.
I scheduled 3 games early. You're still going to make that trip down to Longview during Martin Luther King Day, which is kind of becoming a regular now for the last few years. Talk a little bit about your non-conference schedule as well as the holiday tournament that you guys are continuing on with in late December.
Well, we get 2 events where we go down to Highline Community College and we'll be playing Kent Lake down there, which has got a good program, and then we're going to go down to Lower Columbia Community College. We've always done that. Just before, hopefully, you get to the postseason, it's a weekend away. You get to do some reevaluation with each one of the players on the team about where they're at, and we stay overnight, and then we go play against a team we don't know a lot about. Sometimes with high school basketball nowadays, kids can sort of predict during warm-ups how the other team's going to be, and that's not a good thing because that's not what it's going to be like when you go to district and state. You don't know, you're not that familiar because you've been playing in the playground courts with the team you're playing against. Kelso, we've seen them in the summer, but we don't know a lot about them. You're going to have to go play, and not everything they do is going to be scripted on a scouting report. So it's good to go play teams you're not familiar with. And then to speak to the holiday tournament, this, as we talked about jam session, I believe we started the holiday tournament around the same time. We've had that going for 20 plus years, and that's been great for Mountlake Terrace High School. We expanded it to 8 teams, but it's one of the few tournaments in Puget Sound that's varsity, JV, and C team. And that's what I'm really proud about. Instead of just having a varsity one, then you have to go find games or tournaments for your JV and C team. Those are even more important than varsity because that's the lifeblood of your program, and those kids need good games, and they get that with our tournament. So, they have Marysville, Cedar-Woolley, Sunnyside, Kamiak, Ballard, Edmonds-Woodway, Lakeside. You're seeing some Metro teams. You're seeing some teams from up north. We saw Cedar-Woolley last year. We know what they're like. They have a good program. And then a good friend of mine, Bruce Seibel, brings his team over from Sunnyside last year. They were a state tournament team. You got a host of returning state tournament teams coming and playing in this. And then also you've got one of the best players in the state, Raekwon Battle from Marysville Pilchuck, coming and playing in this. And so it's a great tournament. During the holidays, I like doing a tournament at Mountlake Terrace High School. I don't believe in getting on a plane or having to go travel because a lot of kids have relatives, they have family members that come in town, and they get, instead of saying, okay, I'm taking off and going, those family members can come watch their kids, their sons or grandsons or nephews. They can come watch them play at Mountlake Terrace High School during the holiday tournament. So it's a great event. It's a fun event. Our school does a first-class job of running this event for many, many years. So we're looking forward to putting on another good one this year.
So Friday, December 28th, Saturday, December 29th. And you mentioned JV and C team games as well. A lot of those, Briar Terrace, I think, is one of the hosts.
Actually, we've
Or are you
been
moving it
able
this year?
to be creative, and everything is at Mountlake Terrace.
Oh, it is
High
this
School,
year. Okay, wow.
Using our auxiliary gym. So, we've got the right amount of time for breaks between games, but starting at 9 a.m., going all the way till 7:30 for the last varsity game that tips off in the evening.
So you got 2 full days of basketball at Mountlake Terrace High School during your break. Come on over and watch all 8 of those schools that Nalin just mentioned and see some great basketball. One last thing I want to ask you also about some of your alums from last year. Really strong senior group last season. Where have those guys moved on to? Where can we expect to see them playing this year?
I always equate a league to how many kids can go play college basketball, and that's the quality of a league. Well, we've got 3 guys from last year's team that are going and playing college basketball. So that just shows you how good our team was last year. But we actually have 4 guys playing college basketball. Sean Kirk and Brendan Hayes are at Edmonds CC. Got a chance with our co-coaches to go watch them last Saturday. They were 2 leading scorers and played very well for Edmonds.
Okay.
And Kyrie Armstead from last year's team, everybody knows him. He's a household name. He's at Yakima Valley. He's going to have a great year over there for them. And then Connor Williams. Connor was our 6th man last year. He would have started for most teams in the league. He's down at Phoenix College. And he came back for a couple days, and as soon as he got back, first thing he was back in the gym filling us in, and he'll go have a great career and get a great degree. And so it's really cool to see these young men using basketball as a vehicle for their education and for future successes. And it doesn't surprise me. Anybody that's seen them play over the past couple of years, it's great seeing Sean get back into it because he's a great basketball player, a great young man, and to see him continue playing college basketball, especially at a local level where our kids can go watch him, is a great thing. So we just had Greg Bowman get done playing, and Brock Davis. Brock played last year. He might get back into it, but again, you talk about this alumni, and as much a reason for us being successful, it's because of the ghosts of the past more than anything else, and we've been blessed with our former players.
Kind of a proud papa moment almost for you
Very
when you
much
see
so.
these guys.
Very much so.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Speaking of proud papas, we got one right next to you here. Seem to recall there was a pretty good baseball player at or basketball as well. I played with in Nalin's program, but a young man who played baseball at Mountlake Terrace High School not too many years ago, who's doing some big things at the D1 level, baseball-wise. Tell me a little bit about your son and what he's doing.
Well, Dominic's at the University of Hawaii, and this is his 3rd season there, and his senior season. So things are looking good for the Rainbow Warriors, and it's just
You gonna bust up the hat too, or do we have
yeah, okay.
There we go. I know you brought those. We gotta.
Well, first I gotta put up the Terrace hat, of course. It's my Mountlake Terrace baseball hat. I'll save this one for later. I know that one probably rubs you the wrong way, but yeah, Rainbow Warrior hat here I brought today. I guess which also explains the shirt. So as soon as my son got a scholarship offer to go throw the baseball over there, that changed my whole attire. And you know what? Somebody every once in a while has to go take him for the team and fly over to Honolulu to.
It's rough, huh?
It's pretty rough. Yeah. So yeah, but he's enjoying it. It's a good fit for him. It's a great place to be a pitcher. The ball doesn't travel very well there, and there's good trade winds coming in from left to right field. So, no, he really has enjoyed it there, and I really wish him the best. And if he can stay healthy and keep throwing the ball as he has been, he'll be just fine.
He had a nice junior year as one of their starting pitchers, so we're expecting some big things from him this year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. They've got some really good. Of course, they play a lot of their games there because teams want to go to Honolulu. Imagine that.
Who doesn't?
But then all of their away games, well, I should say all but one away trip is in league in Southern California. But the other road trip this year is in Columbus, Ohio against the Buckeyes. So hopefully I'll get to go back and see him play there. That would be a treat. So
a lot of great things going on with these guys. Baseball for Dominic. Certainly Nalin's busy with his basketball season. But first things first, we got jam session on Tuesday night. And you guys got an okay PA announcer for that one too, right? So I appreciate you let me be a part of it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. So we're excited. 5:30 Tuesday night. Again, $5 if you don't have a can of food. If you bring one of those, $3 admission, and we're hoping to see a lot of folks over there.
Absolutely.
Nalin, Vince, always a pleasure. Thank you both very much for not only coming in this morning, but also for all that you do for the community and for the school.
Honored. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, Steve.
I just want to mention that MLTnews.com, which is one of our 3 publications, is actually a sponsor of Jam Session this year. So we're excited to support that event. It is really a fun one to go to.
Well, and I'm sure for you, knowing how involved you are in journalism as a whole, The Mountlake Terrace Hawkeye, the school newspaper, has done an outstanding job, nationally recognized and award-winning. And for you to be able to partner with Vince DeMiero, I've got to think that's kind of a neat thing as well.
One of my favorite people, and of course, because I was inspired, as many journalists I know, by my high school journalism teacher, I admire very much what Vince has done to inspire many current journalists in the area. So.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And I guess we should mention a couple of the other sports going on, since we haven't talked about them yet. Boys swimming also getting ready to start up. No swimming puns this time. They're getting ready to jump into the pool. And then also it's cheer season too. So I know the cheer contests, most of them take place in January or late January, early February. But nonetheless, a lot of those, mostly ladies, but some of the guys too, that have been cheering on the fall sports teams, now they start to get ready for competitions and hopefully trying to find their own spots at state tournaments and maybe even podium finishes. We've had a Meadowdale team that's won state championships over the last few years, so certainly wish all of them the best as well.
Yeah, okay, and as always, we will continue to bring you the news of winter sports every week, except maybe a day off here or there for a holiday, we'll see. But we hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much, and we'll be back next week to report on what else is going on.